Something is happening behind the scenes that's dividing Baltimore Ravens fans right now, and if the rumors have even a shred of truth to them, it could completely change the course of the Ravens offense next season. A simple interaction on social media was enough to set the entire fan base abuzz, and now everyone is asking the same question: are the Ravens secretly preparing a play that no one anticipated? Because if that really happens, Lamar Jackson could be entering the most dangerous offensive situation of his entire career. But at the same time, there are fans who believe that this play could both bring Baltimore closer to the Super Bowl and create a major distraction in a locker room that already has sky-high expectations. And when you know all the details of this story, you'll understand exactly why Ravens fans can't stop talking about it. Before we continue, don't forget to like if you truly believe the Ravens can finally bring another Lombardi trophy back to Baltimore this season. And in the comments, I want all the optimistic Ravens fans to write this right now. In 2026, the Ravens will complete the mission. Now let's get right into this, because the situation with Stefon Diggs has fans going crazy for a reason. According to the information circulating, Diggs recently posted highlights from his latest season with the New England Patriots, and he made sure everybody understood one thing very clearly: he still believes he's one of the best wide receivers in football. And when you look at the numbers, it's honestly hard to argue against him. Diggs reportedly pointed out that he played only 52% of the snaps and still finished with 85 catches for 1,045 yards while coming back from an ACL injury. That's exactly why this conversation has become so serious among Ravens fans. We're not talking about a washed-up veteran trying to hang around the league. We're talking about a player who still believes he can dominate defenses at a high level. What really sent Ravens fans into a frenzy, though, was the interaction involving Jalen Hawkins. The current Ravens safety jumped into the comments and told Diggs to come to more, and then Diggs responded with the eyes emoji. That was all it took for social media to explode. Suddenly fans started imagining Diggs lining up alongside Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson in Todd Monken's offense. And if we're being honest, that image is enough to make any Ravens fan dream a little bit. But here's where things get really interesting. The report also explained that Diggs wasn't only responding to Ravens-related comments. Multiple players from different teams apparently reached out publicly, and Diggs responded to them with the exact same eyes emoji. That includes players connected to Washington and New England. So while Ravens fans got excited, the reality is that Diggs may simply be letting the entire NFL know he's available and listening. Still, you can't completely dismiss the possibility of Baltimore making a move. Why? Because this type of signing honestly feels very Ravens-like. Quiet veteran, big talent, undervalued market, low risk, high reward opportunity. That's exactly the kind of move this front office has explored before. And if the Ravens truly believe they're one elite receiver away from finally breaking through in January, then adding somebody with Diggs' experience could absolutely become a real discussion internally. At the same time, there are real questions the organization would have to answer. The Ravens already have young talent developing at wide receiver. Rashad Bateman continues to grow in this offense. Younger names like Tylan Wallace and other developing receivers are trying to carve out larger roles. So the front office would have to determine whether bringing in a veteran like Diggs helps the locker room and offense more than it potentially changes the current chemistry. Another major storyline that came out of these discussions involves the pressure surrounding the Ravens offense heading into the new season. Fans are still carrying frustration from recent playoff exits, especially after another heartbreaking finish last year. There's this feeling around the fan base that Baltimore is incredibly close to reaching the Super Bowl, but something keeps going wrong in the biggest moments. That's why every roster move feels magnified right now. And one of the most fascinating points raised in the conversation centered around new offensive coordinator Declan Doyle. Some fans are nervous because Doyle doesn't have years of experience calling plays at the NFL level. But there's also optimism because every time Lamar Jackson has had to learn a new offense in his NFL career, he has gone on to win MVP and lead Baltimore to the #1 seed in the AFC. That's not just a random coincidence anymore. Ravens fans are starting to believe that major offensive transitions somehow unlock the absolute best version of Lamar. Now imagine combining an MVP-level Lamar Jackson with a healthy Zay Flowers, a more developed Rashad Bateman, and potentially adding someone like Stefon Diggs into the mix. That's exactly why this conversation refuses to disappear. Even if nothing happens, the idea alone is enough to keep the fan base talking every single day. At the end of the day, the Ravens are clearly operating in championship mode right now. The expectations are enormous. The pressure is real. And every single move the front office considers will be viewed through the lens of one question. Can this finally be the roster that gets Baltimore back to the Super Bowl? The pressure surrounding this Ravens team is only getting bigger, and honestly, that's exactly what happens when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson leading the franchise. Expectations are no longer just about winning the AFC North. Fans want championships. Fans want Super Bowls. And after everything that happened last season, there's this feeling that Baltimore is standing right on the edge of something special, but they still need to find a way to finally finish the job when the lights are brightest. That's why conversations like the Stefon Diggs situation become so massive around the fan base. Because people immediately start imagining how one more proven playmaker could change everything for this offense. And let's be honest here, when you think about playoff football, one thing matters more than almost anything else: players who can create separation in critical moments. Players who don't panic under pressure. Players who have seen every type of coverage imaginable. That's exactly why a veteran receiver with Diggs' experience naturally grabs attention. At the same time, there's another side to this discussion that Ravens fans cannot ignore. Baltimore has spent time building and developing younger talent already inside this offense. Zay Flowers showed flashes of becoming one of the most explosive receivers in the league. Rashad Bateman continues fighting to prove he can consistently stay healthy and become a major piece of the offense. And there's still belief internally that some of the younger receivers can continue taking important steps forward. So if the Ravens were to make a move for Diggs, it wouldn't just be about talent. It would also be about balancing targets, chemistry, personalities, and expectations. And that's where things get really interesting, because the Ravens are entering a completely new phase offensively with Declan Doyle stepping into a larger role. Fans are understandably nervous because experience matters in the NFL, especially when you're trying to beat elite playoff teams. But there's also excitement because new systems can sometimes unlock new possibilities. One thing that stood out from the discussion was the reminder that every single time Lamar Jackson has learned a new offense in the NFL, incredible things happened afterward. MVP seasons, top playoff seeding, offensive explosions. That pattern has Ravens fans wondering if another offensive evolution could be coming this season. And if that happens, imagine how dangerous Baltimore could become if they successfully blend Lamar's creativity with more explosive receiving options. Another thing Ravens fans should pay attention to is how much confidence still exists around this roster despite the playoff disappointments. The frustration is obvious, but so is the belief. Even after heartbreaking endings, this team continues putting itself in position to compete with the best organizations in football. And when you consistently stay close to the top, eventually the pressure pushes organizations into making bold decisions. That's why the Diggs rumors won't disappear anytime soon. Even if there's nothing officially happening right now, the idea itself makes too much sense for fans not to discuss it every day. Veteran receiver, championship-ready quarterback, aggressive front office, Super Bowl expectations. All the ingredients are there for speculation to continue building throughout the offseason. What also makes this fascinating is the way Ravens fans react anytime a player shows even the slightest interest in Baltimore. The fan base immediately starts imagining possibilities because this city is desperate to see another championship parade. There's passion here, there's loyalty here, and there's belief that this current era led by Lamar Jackson still has unfinished business. And honestly, when you look at the AFC landscape, the Ravens know standing still may not be enough anymore. The competition is brutal. Every contender is trying to improve. Every playoff team is searching for another edge. So Baltimore's front office has difficult